Night of the Living Dead is one of the most iconic zombie movies of all time. Romero nailed the idea of zombies and set the standard for what most of us know zombies to be, even to this very day. In the movie itself, the zombies are called ghouls, but tropes such as destroying the head or brain to kill the undead, overwhelming hordes of stumbling corpses, unexplained disease that caused the corpses to rise, and bites that infect living survivors became popularized within the zombie mythos due to this wonderful depiction of the living dead. With how popular the 1968 film is, it's no wonder that in 1990 it got a remake, but it does surprise me that people don't seem to hold it in the same regard as the original. So today we'll be discussing The Night of the Living Dead and its remake to see the difference between these two films and try to discover the reason that the remake never really took off. Also, if you enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe so that you don't miss what we cover next. Obviously, we know that George A. Romero directed the original film, but the remake was only presented by him. I'm not really sure what that means, but he was also an executive producer on the project, so it's clear to say that the film had his blessing. Instead, it was directed by Tom Savini, and if you're a fan of horror, that name probably rings a bell. Savini is mostly known for his practical effect and makeup work, and he's been credited with inventing quite a few practices that are still used in the practical effect industry. You've probably seen his work in Friday the 13th, Creepshow, Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2, or any number of zombie films, including Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead. But back to Night of the Living Dead. Both films follow a fairly similar story beat, but have plenty of differences as they progress. We open with two siblings named Johnny and Barbara entering a cemetery to pay their respects. In the original, their father died a few years back, but in the remake, it's their mother whose grave they visit. But in both, Johnny constantly teases Barbara.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Stop it! You're ignorant.
They're coming for you, Barbara. They're coming to get you, Barbara.
I don't want to cause a fuss.
We're coming to get you, Barbara!
Things pop off pretty quick, with the undead now stumbling around and looking for a bite to eat. Barbara gets attacked, but Johnny pulls the zombie off of her, only to fall and hit his head on a headstone and die. Barbara flees into the car, but Johnny has the keys. She takes off the parking brake, which causes the car to roll down a hill and crash into a tree. In the original, the crash isn't too bad. The car would still be drivable, which is a small plot point later on, but in the remake, the car is completely totaled. Barbara keeps running until she finds a house. She tries knocking, but no one answers, so she finds an open door and takes shelter inside. Blood drips from the ceiling, and in the original, Barbara wanders upstairs to see a corpse with its face mostly eaten away.
God damn it, Barb!
But in the remake, a zombie stumbles through the banister and begins to attack her. In both films, Barbara left the door open, so more zombies are coming in to eat her, but just before she's bit and killed, a man named Ben shows up and helps clear out the house. Ben has a truck, but it's out of gas. He mentions that he chose this house because he saw a gas pump out back and was hoping to refuel his vehicle, but the pump is locked, so he's hoping to find the key inside of the house. They drag the zombies' bodies outside, and in the original they burn it, which leads Ben to the discovery that the zombies are afraid of fire. In the remake, Ben says that he knows the zombies are afraid of fire, but we don't get an example of this until later on, and it kinda makes it feel a little bit out of nowhere when the fire aspect does show up. The movies here are very similar. The duo of Ben and Barbara decide to hunker down and wait for help to arrive. They begin to board up the house, and when they run out of lumber, they decide to take the doors off of their hinges and use them as barricades. This process is pretty quick in the original, and the entire time they're listening to a broadcast on the radio. We learn that this outbreak is worldwide, and it's believed to be due to some kind of strange radiation that was brought back to Earth from a recent voyage to Venus. In the remake, the process of boarding up the doors and windows is a lot more frantic and difficult, and we don't get the broadcast, so we and the characters are in the dark about the whole situation. Another big difference, and probably the biggest difference between the two movies, is Barbara. In the original, Barbara is in a state of shock. She can't process what's going on in the world and can't get over the fact that Johnny is dead. She brings him up constantly and mumbles to herself that they need to go back and get him. She's helpful on the occasion, but mostly she's living in her own mind, distressed about what's happening and forcing Ben to take on the role of protector. He does his best to keep her busy and make sure that she doesn't go outside as the horde of zombies is growing. At one point, they also slap each other, but it's a scary situation all around, so we'll just let that slide. Now, in the remake, Barbara is the definitive protagonist. She's a bit quiet, displaying her shock with silent action, but she is definitely not in crippling distress. She's helpful in boarding up the windows and in fighting the zombies. One of my favorite aspects of the film is her progression. At first, she's dressed in heels and a dress, but as the night goes on and the situation becomes more dire, she constantly changes to become stronger so that she can handle the circumstances. First, she changes her high heels for boots, then her dress for jeans, and finally she takes off her blouse and dons a rifle. It's a cool physical showing of her mental growth and readiness to take on the undead horde. I like the changes the remake incorporated a lot, but that's not to say that her character in the original is bad. In fact, I really like the point of view that she gives in the original. It's very realistic and shows how dangerous our own mental blocks could be in a situation that determines life or death. In the original, Ben douses an armchair in lighter fluid and throws it onto the front lawn to keep the zombies away a bit longer, giving us another example of the zombies hating fire. But in the remake, the undead are at every barricade and trying to get the survivors inside. Searching the house, Ben finds bullets and realizes that there must be a gun somewhere inside. In the original, he finds the gun in a closet, but in the remake, he finds the gun on the upper story of the house near a corpse that used it to end his own life. While Ben is searching the upstairs and Barbara is alone on the main level, the door to the cellar opens and Barbara screams. Ben rushes downstairs to find that there were other survivors hiding out in the cellar this whole time.
Didn't you hear all the noise that was going on up here? We could have used some help.
The other survivors are Harry, his wife Helen, their daughter Karen, or Sarah in the remake, Tom, and his girlfriend Judy Rose. The characters are mostly the same between the two films, with one exception: Judy Rose. In the original, Judy Rose is mostly useless. She's kind of just there, serving as a babysitter or an extra set of hands on occasion, but in the remake she's actually a character. She takes initiative in barricading the house and mentions that she's been driving trucks her whole life, which comes into play just a little bit later. The closest thing that this movie has to an antagonist, other than the zombies of course, is Harry. He and Ben butt heads immediately and constantly.
I've only been around you a minute or two, but that's enough time for me to know that I don't like you very much. I'm sure you feel the same about me, so let's just try to stay out of each other's way, all right?
Harry thinks the best course of action is to hide out in the cellar, but Ben doesn't want to trap themselves in a place with nowhere to run. Harry gives an ultimatum that he'll be closing the cellar door and boarding it up in a few minutes, and he won't be opening it up until help arrives, even if the others need help. While Harry is clearly the bad guy in this situation, and he's pretty racist in the remake.
What a place to be stuck. In the middle of nowhere. Bunch of yo-yos.
His character is another realistic example of someone in this situation. He's doing what he thinks is right to protect his family, especially his daughter who has fallen ill due to a bite from one of the undead. He doesn't care what the others think or what they need as long as his family is safe. I'm not trying to defend him as a person, but as a character, it's a good showing of someone who is used to being in charge of a situation and then having that all ripped away, and now he's got no idea what to do. The horde of zombies is growing quickly, so now with the help of Tom and Judy Rose, they're able to use all that they have to barricade the windows. It turns out that this house belonged to Tom's uncle, so Tom knows that there's more wood in the cellar that they could use. So they bang on the cellar door, demanding Harry opens up so that they can continue to secure the house. Eventually, Helen convinces Harry to comply, and Tom and Ben enter the cellar and grab some more wood. Ben mentions that he has a truck, and seeing the state that Sarah/Karen is in, he says that they should start looking for the key to the gas pump so that they can get out of here and get the daughter to somewhere with medical care. Hearing this, Helen rushes upstairs to look for the keys, and this causes Harry to come upstairs as well, where he starts kind of helping out. Harry goes upstairs where he finds a TV. In the remake, this TV is hardly utilized. He sees a newscast about what's going on, but all in all, the situation remains uncertain. He takes the TV downstairs, but when Ben sees him trying to take it into the cellar, they get into a little scuffle and the TV falls down the stairs and breaks. The original has the TV play a much larger part. Multiple times from here on out, we take small breaks from the survivors to see what's going on the national levels. We see the experts all contemplating what's going on and the best ways to stop the ghouls. It gives us a lot of understanding of what the world is doing and clues us in on some possibilities as to what caused the outbreak. The most immediate and important thing that we see is that the local police departments are gathering survivors and creating squadrons to clear out the undead in their areas, and that effort seems to be going well. Our group of survivors find a keyring and believe that the key to the gas pump must be on it. They plan to rush out to the truck and drive it to the gas pump. The original has Tom and Ben plan to run out, but when they do, Judy Rose just decides that she wants to come too, so she just runs out and joins in their plan. In the remake, they actually plan to have Judy Rose drive the truck since she has experience, while Tom and Ben will guard and fill the truck with gas. Ben arms himself with a torch, and they rush to the truck. This scene is really chaotic, but they all make it to the vehicle. In the remake, Ben is flung from the truck when they take a sharp turn, but in both, when they try the keys on the pump, they don't fit, so they decide that the best course of action is to just shoot the lock off. The bullet ends up piercing the gas pump and fuel sprays onto the makeshift torch, causing the truck to go up in flames and explode, killing Judy Rose and Tom. In one of my favorite scenes, Ben rushes back to the house. I just love how chaotic it is as Ben pushes and trips the zombies. He's capable of fighting, but the numbers are almost too much. He does get to the front door, but Harry doesn't unlock it, forcing Barbara to finally take action and let Ben inside. Unfortunately, Ben is grabbed by zombies and drops his gun. Harry then rushes and grabs it. Things here go very different between the two films. In the original, Ben fights Harry and gets his gun back. He shoots Harry and leaves him stumbling down into the basement. Upstairs, Helen is grabbed by a zombie and Barbara gets up and helps. Unfortunately, the zombie that grabbed Helen turns out to be Johnny. Barbara stares at her undead brother, causing her to get grabbed and torn out of the window, where she is eaten alive. Helen runs into the basement and sees her daughter eating Harry. She can't force herself to do anything as her daughter sees her, picks up a gardening trowel, and kills her on the spot. In the remake, Helen goes into the basement first and she ends up dying to her daughter before things really pop off. Harry grabs Ben's gun, but Ben and Barbara are able to fight off a zombie cop, so they end up arming themselves with the cops' guns. Harry's daughter then stumbles upstairs from the basement. Ben pleads with Harry to kill the zombie, but he can't, so when Ben raises his gun to do the job, Harry turns his weapon and shoots Ben. Ben doesn't die from the shot, and he shoots Harry in retaliation. Barbara kills the daughter, but is forced to flee from the house. She tries to bring Ben with her, but he says that he's too weak from the gunshot to run, so he tells her to go without him and come back with help if she finds any. Harry goes up into the attic and hides, and Ben ends up going into the cellar and barricading the door. Both films have Ben surviving in the cellar, but the remake shows that the gas pump key was hanging on the wall the entire time. Barbara keeps running until she finds a pile of dead zombies, and this is the time in the remake where she sees her re-dead brother. She ends up finding a squadron of zombie killers, and the next morning they head over to the house to see if they can rescue any of the survivors. Unfortunately, when they open up the cellar door, a zombified Ben stumbles up, showing that he died of his wounds in the night. Harry hears the rescuers and is ecstatic to see Barbara, but she doesn't seem to share the sentiment. The remake ends here, giving us a clip show of dead zombies, but the original goes a bit different. Obviously, Barbara is already dead, so she can't be the sole survivor here. Also, Harry is dead, so that just leaves Ben. He barricades himself in the cellar, where he finds the dead and reanimating Harry and Helen. He kills them with a shot to the head and stays down there for a few days. A squadron of zombie killers find the house as they're sweeping through the town and clearing the undead. Ben hears the gunshots as they kill the zombs, so he goes upstairs to call out for help. But as he's looking out a window, thinking that he's saved, one of the squadron members mistakes him for a zombie and shoots. The shot hits Ben in the head, killing him instantly. The original ends with a slideshow of dead zombies and Ben. I genuinely love both of these movies. The original has one of the saddest and most abrupt endings to a film that I've ever seen, showcasing the true brutality that the world has become and showing that safety is fleeting in this kind of environment. While the remake is a tidge less sad, but still bittersweet in its killing of Ben. I think that the biggest difference between these two films can be summarized by saying that the original is a film about a group of survivors who do all that they can to live in a zombie outbreak, but all end up finding their untimely deaths by the film's end. While the remake is more of a story about Barbara, who finds a group of survivors, but ultimately we watch as she grows and overcomes her adversities and proves that she has what it takes to become the sole survivor. They're both incredibly similar in situation and story, but I think that they are different enough to be looked at as individual films instead of just an original and its copy. As far as why the remake never really took off, I don't have a great answer. I think that it was a culmination of the time that it was released and the fact that zombie movies had had a recent rise and were in a small state of decline. But watching now, I'd say that it holds up as one of the better zombie movies, even by today's standards. Regardless, either movie called Night of the Living Dead is great to watch, and I highly recommend them if you haven't seen either one of them. A huge thanks to all of my YouTube members for the extra support, and especially to Igor, who was my first ever YouTube member. Seriously, thank you guys so much. I've got some plans for the membership program in the future, but for now, if you are interested in joining, then it's only $2.99 a month, and you'll get a credit at the end of these videos, as well as my everlasting love. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'd love to know your thoughts on these two films, and especially your thoughts in regards to the remake versus the original. Which do you prefer? But yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe so that you don't miss out on the next movie that we cover, and until next time, you all stay safe out there, and happy watching. Bye-bye.
Nothing to worry about, just using the scope. Safety is on.